Hi everyone, and welcome to the Capricorn August 2021 self-connection reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and Meaning-Based Spiritual Coaching Services. I am Lauren. Hi and welcome. So this is one of 3 connection readings I complete for each sign each month that focuses on some aspect of awareness. So we start the month with self-connection, so self-awareness of your unique internal authentic self. Then we move into the second reading for the month, which is the spiritual connection reading, which demonstrates how to connect that unique internal authentic part of yourself that you discover in the self-connection reading with your external environment. And then we have our third reading, which is the love connection reading, which focuses on the general themes of love as well as the romantic themes of love. And we take a look at how you're connecting your internal authentic self to those energies, as well as kind of more of a free-form look at just any areas of blockages around somebody that you might be dealing with in the area of love. So all of these readings are meant to really help you be able to better see yourself as the unique, individual, singular being that you are, and how that connects to your external environment so that you can start to become more aware of your place and purpose and tap into that feeling of emotional fulfillment that we all have the capability to feel. So Capricorn, we are going to start with a Power of Surrender card. Now, I focus on utilizing the 3 principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation, which I call the Triad of Engagement. It's a coaching tool I've developed that utilizes those 3 principles to really help utilize them to start that awareness of self and that awareness to your importance and connection to your external environment. So as I'm pulling this card, which just came out right now, we are going to be tapping into the principles of curiosity. So curiosity helps us open up and become receptive to some aspect of our experience. So when we're directing curiosity outward, we're opening up and becoming receptive to our external environment. But in this reading, we're turning curiosity inwards, towards ourselves. So we're using the highest elements, the highest version of curiosity, which is being optimistic and open and receptive, and we're turning that energy inward. And this is to help us overcome those elements of disconnect between self-connection, where we block ourselves off from really continuing to tap into our unique internal authentic selves and the parts of ourselves that perhaps maybe are lying dormant or need a little extra attention. And we can become disconnected when we start to get into a place of more pessimism and closed unreceptivity. So when we're not utilizing curiosity, and this is when it will look like we don't realize that we are underutilizing a strength or an ability of ourselves. Or this is where we stop being curious about some aspect of self because we tell ourselves, well, the last time I tried to bring this part of myself out, I got hurt over and over and over again. So I'm just going to push that away and down. Or we start to tell ourselves that we can't change and we can't grow, and this is just the way we are and will always be. And that's where we really limit ourselves from understanding our own unique place and purpose, but also limit our own internal spiritual growth. So Capricorn, right off the bat, when I was getting into your energy before the reading, I just want to preface this reading. I felt a little bit of heavy energy. So there was this quality to the energy coming through where I heard someone say, I'm not a fool, and I don't want to be seen as the fool. And I almost get this feeling a little bit like you feel right now like you've been played for a fool. It's kind of like the joke's on you. But at the same time, I felt as you were feeling this way, that you were also to a certain extent, running a little bit from, you were acting a little bit like, not, I wouldn't say an immature child, so to speak, but that you were acting a little bit silly and goofy. And then when you get caught, almost like you were trying to not want to step into some aspect of responsibility. And so you were acting against it. But then when others were pointing that out to you, you kind of fell back into this place of, well, I'm not the fool. I'm not trying to shirk my responsibilities. I'm not a child. It's almost like then you become defensive. So it's kind of hard for me to describe what I was feeling, but that's what kind of came through. There's this element of feeling like you're not being seen for the powerful, capable individual that you are, but at the same time not realizing that perhaps your actions are actually undercutting what others are seeing because you're not stepping into that place of responsibility, taking responsibility for rising up to meet your responsibilities, to be able to show that strength and purpose and ability to, again, meet those responsibilities in your life. So, Capricorn, I know you're not a fool. So as we move into building out a question for this month, we have surrender procrastination, which is interesting because actually Cancer got this same card. And Capricorn, Cancer is your opposite sign in the zodiac. So you guys tend to link together in the way that you often will kind of balance each other out, but also live out through connection with this other sign. You guys are kind of like opposites attract, so to speak. And so where Cancer is representative of feminine and kind of the mother energy, Capricorn is representative of the more, wow, Capricorn, you are just... I'm getting all kinds of tongue-tied. I apologize. You're more of the masculine energy and you harness kind of more of the father archetype energy. So you guys are, that's kind of like it's almost like if you guys know the color wheel and there's, the opposites in the color wheel, that's what it's like in the zodiac between Capricorn and Cancer. So you guys kind of learn lessons from each other. And it's interesting that Cancer also got this card. So there is this quality about you guys are kind of going through the same, you might even want to watch that reading, because a lot of times what I found is when, even just in me watching other readers as well, when there's a similar tie like this, usually you'll get an additional message that pertains to you or the other person that you're dealing with currently. So surrender procrastination, and it says, now is the time to jump on a goal instead of putting it off. Taking action will attract success. And this is kind of what I was feeling when I was getting into your energy, that there's this quality of wanting to be seen as capable, but also kind of shirking your responsibilities a little bit at the same time. And so really what I'm seeing here for you guys is you being asked this month to bring awareness to some aspect of yourself where you have been shirking a little bit of those responsibilities. And maybe perhaps blaming another for pointing that out to you. Now, this can, when we're looking internally at ourselves, this can be something as simple as you need to pay your taxes and it's the deadline's looming and you just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And every time maybe you're in a family dynamic and your significant other, your spouse says, have you done the taxes yet? Have you done, you're like, whatever, I still have 2 more months left to do that. And your spouse is like, well, you said you were going to do it, so are you going to do it? And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but like, taxes are stupid anyways. Like, who even needs to do taxes? I think I should just like not do them, and I'm gonna go on a strike. And you're joking about it, but the other person's like, I don't need jokes right now. I just need to know if you're gonna freaking do the taxes or not. Like, this is kind of important, and you're trying to come across like you're going to do the taxes, but you're also trying to make light of the fact that maybe you're a little nervous to do the taxes because you have a fear that this year you guys are going to owe money. And so there's this element of like not wanting to do them and making jokes around it. And the other person being like, stop being like, and I'm sorry if this is going to trigger anybody, but this is how other people might perceive that, to say, stop being an idiot, stop being like acting like a child and just do the task already. And that's a little bit of the feeling I'm getting right now, is that there's this element of almost acting silly and goofy like a child, and it's not being received by others in the way that you're intending. And it's because you're coming from a place actually of fear. And that's really what I'm getting. It's strange this is coming through very clearly in this way for me, but there's almost this element of kind of that misdirect. Instead of saying, I'm really afraid to do the taxes right now because I really do feel like we are going to owe a lot of money and I don't know where this money is going to come from for us to be able to pay these taxes, you're coming across as like being, a silly, goofy, almost like teenager of like, yeah, who needs to do taxes anyways? And this can also look like perhaps going into your work environment. This could be something where, you're doing the same thing towards an important project because you're so worried about it and you're afraid that you're not going to, rise up to meet those standards. And so when your boss asks you, okay, so how far are you on, completing this task? And you're like, geez, this is so much harder than I thought. Man, forensic accounting is crazy. Who even does this? This is like for losers who want to, sit, crunch numbers all day long. And your boss is like, okay, but are you close to finishing the project? And you're like, and this is like when you might even deflect and do something, funny or strange, like, share a meme about something or, and again, sometimes when we are trying to deflect in that way and trying to hide a part of ourselves that's coming up and we're a little bit of afraid, this is when, instead of us just being honest and saying, I'm really nervous about this project and I actually really need some help and I'm going to take action on my own authentic behalf because this is how I'm truly feeling right now and I'm aware of how I'm feeling, that I'm going to admit to my boss that I need a little extra help and that I need some extra guidance. And that's not a bad thing to admit to that's what's going to make you actually look far more mature, to be able to ask for that help or to be able to tell your spouse that you're afraid that the taxes, you're going to owe a bunch of money this year. And then maybe your spouse might actually come back and say, oh, so that's why you're not doing them. Well, why don't we sit down and do them together? And then we will see if that's the case. And if it is, then we'll work through it. And suddenly that fear is lifted. But I think what's happening is that you're procrastinating on something specifically because of fear. So that's really what I would tap into this month as your point of curiosity and your point of creating a question to ask yourself. Where are you either shirking a responsibility or procrastinating on sharing some fear or basically communicating whatever you're emotionally kind of riled up about inside? Where are you not communicating that appropriately and maturely because it's based from a place of fear? Because either one of two things, either in communicating it maturely, it's going to have to mean that you face a part of yourself right now that's out of control. or that there's a part of yourself that you're afraid of, and it's weighing heavily on you. And this can be a massive internal block as far as you being able to really act in flow and with confidence from a place of authenticity, because you're really trying to hide and keep something close to your chest, and it's coming out in this kind of immature way. So this is where you're going to ask yourself that question: where are you procrastinating? Now, this can look like procrastinating on asking, the higher ups in the company. Maybe they promised you a job, a promotion, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like 6 months ago, you're like, this is amazing. I get promoted. Oh my gosh. And they're like, yeah, but we'll discuss your salary later. And starting from that point, they gave you all the extra responsibilities, but they never came back to the table to discuss your salary increase. So since then, you've been doing all this extra work, and there's never been anything formal drafted up that says, this is your raise increase, this is your formal position title, sign on the dotted line, this is where it's all going to go. And you are not stepping into courage you're basically procrastinating on talking to your higher ups to say, excuse me, remember 6 months ago when you told me I was going to get promoted, and then you gave me all this extra work and I've done it? And I would like to have my raise, please. And so instead of sitting there and saying, okay, it's time for me to stop procrastinating and asking them where my raise is and where my, signing official documents to state that I am now accepting this new position. Instead, I'm just getting more and more defensive around this topic. So maybe if your significant other at home is like, where's this raise? Like, have they, and you're like, nah, I work for a bunch of idiots. Nah, 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 nah. And your significant other's like, stop being stupid. Like, go in and just ask what's going on, And instead, you're just trying to deflect in kind of a goofy way again, because you're so worried that you might ask and they might actually tell you, oh, you know what, never mind, this doesn't actually involve a salary increase. And that might actually mean that you then have to make a tough decision, go back to yourself and say, well, do I want to continue to work at a place that's going to treat me like that? So this is where you're bringing awareness to yourself and how you're acting, how you're actually communicating stress in a specific area or fear of wanting to face some aspect of self. This could also look like, I'm trying to think of another good example here, where, maybe in your home life, you are really stressing about something with maybe your family dynamic. And again, it could just be solved simply by you stating it in a very open and mature way, but instead you are dancing around the topic. So it comes out a little passive aggressive instead of just very clear. It's like, hey, I would like this aspect of our family dynamic to change. And this is why. This is why I think it would be beneficial. And instead, you're just constantly like sniping at these little things that would be solved by this bigger discussion. And instead, you're just, again, dancing around the topic and sniping at things. And the other person or the other people in your family are like, what is going on with my Capricorn? Like, stop it. Like, if you want to make that change, then make that change. Like, why do you keep harping on this? This can also, and this is where we get into the deeper, kind of heavier energy, but this is also where self-awareness and us unlocking our highest potential really come in, and where we really have to then go from curiosity into courage, is being open and receptive to realize that sometimes this can also involve something like an addiction, where we are procrastinating and admitting to ourselves that an addiction in our life is hindering us from moving forward in our spiritual and emotional growth. And instead of wanting to recognize that and we end up kind of, again, dancing around the subject. So when somebody says, you seem to have an addiction problem here, you're like, yeah, whatever. And you just kind of brush it off and you act silly. And that's really where some major, disengagement between awareness of self can come in. Now, I don't think that, that could be just for a couple of you going through something like that, but this is a month where there's going to be some aspect. Now, it could, again, be something much lighter, like, again, just not wanting to do your taxes because you know that there's this fear that you're going to owe a lot more money, or it could be heavier in that capacity of, having to talk to your significant other or your work uppers to say, where's my raise? There's all kinds of varying things, but there's something here that you've been procrastinating on. So it's about asking yourself, where have you been procrastinating because of, out of a place of either you don't want to face a fear or because you don't want to face some aspect of self that needs to change. Now we're going to step into courage. So I'm going to pull a spirit animal oracle card. And this is where we get a chance to come back to the seat of our own self-empowerment, to a seat of control. Because courage taps us into the courage to make decisions, to take authentic action. So this is where we get a chance to really bring awareness to every decision and every action we choose to take. And we bring awareness to actually how we are acting. So if you start to notice that there is some aspect of yourself, so let's say it is that you're worried about approaching your boss, about, what about that raise that you talked about 6 months ago, that this is where, okay, you realize it is bothering me. And every time I get asked about it, or I know I need to take action around it, I act a little silly, I act a little childish, and I shirk the responsibility I have towards acting in accordance with my internal self, which is pushing me to address this issue. And in so doing, which in facing personal challenges like this is where we get a chance to learn and grow about, we learn about ourselves and grow. So there could be some aspect about this challenge that you're being faced with to actually unlock some key aspect of yourself. So this could be something where in trying to admit your fear to your partner about not wanting to do the taxes because of owing a lot of money, well, this can end up becoming a learning lesson for you both about financial management and end up being very positive and making you realize, wow, I want to learn more about this, and I'm going to, kind of unlock this aspect of self that is now interested in financial planning or in focusing on communicating in a very, I'd say, mature but confident way to your, let's say, manager about, what about your raise? Well, this is a way for you to grow and learn and step into that confidence of expressing yourself in a mature way to say, I see my value, this is my value, and I'm not going to let somebody step on that or use that. I'm going to, step into my place of personal power and take action in accordance with expressing my value from a place of confidence. And so in meeting this challenge, you get to work with that energy of stepping into confidence of self. So the card that you got for the principle of courage is Chameleon Spirit. And it says, act as if. Number 14. And I think that this is a great point of advice for this month for you to take action, because there is this quality sometimes, I think, where we feel that there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome that we get, where we want to step up and show ourselves as this confident asset to, let's say, somebody's business, and we want to communicate like, hey, I deserve that raise you told me about. You told me you were going to give me 6 months ago. But then we second guess ourselves and we're like, but I'm not really that person, and I'm not really that confident. And this is where you have to kind of say, act as if. Because the more you act as if, the more you actually do embody that. People aren't just born as savvy business people. That experience comes as they tested aspects of themselves in the business world and realized, okay, this is how I communicate, and this is how I can, make sure that this aspect, I grow this aspect of self. In fact, the majority of savvy business people are those type of people who are constantly reading the self-empowerment and self-improvement type books. They're going to meetings where they're learning new things and engaging with people who can give them new insight and new ideas. And so there's this quality of just realizing that nobody starts out knowing everything. And so Capricorn, this might be that hard lesson where you realize you don't know everything. And it's okay to ask for help, or it's okay to be a little shaky when you ask about that, where's that raise? But it shouldn't stop you from still taking action on behalf of that part of yourself that's coming up as an emotional block right now. The number 14 is a number that I associate with the number of freedom. Freedom through change, which I think is really key to this card here. When you think about it, the chameleon spirit's always changing and always adaptable. And that's actually what keeps them free. It helps them actually be free from taking falling prey to predators, because they can easily in the moment just change and avoid something coming to get them. And so there is this kind of element here of really stepping up into that energy of, if you need to, if you're having trouble finding the courage, this is to take action in some aspect. This is really where the power of imagination can come into play. And I've worked with this tool myself when we're kind of going into uncharted territories. This can help especially for anybody who's stepping up into a new role for themselves. So maybe you're stepping up from being just a base level employee to a manager now. And you're like, I didn't get any training and I don't know how to manage. And you know what? Most people don't. This is the lesson in life. Most people don't get any type of set standard training for anything in life, except unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And even then, you still have to learn through direct experience. So a doctor may have all the book smarts and have gone through all the training, but until he's or she is the one actually there performing that surgery or talking to that patient, there is this element of you don't know until you do it. So you kind of have to just act into that role. And what I found helps kind of bridge that kind of awkward phase between being this and elevating into this is utilizing your imagination to imagine either the version that you would like to be of that new version of self. So let's say let's use being a doctor. All of a sudden you're going from, or, let's actually stick with kind of the work world here. Corporate work world of going from just being a base employee to now being a manager. That this would look like you taking the time to imagine what your ideal manager would be. So if you could think of the perfect manager that you would love to work under, well then imagine that and try to step yourself into that role. So that when you start to come to those places of fear and, well, I don't know, and people are going to see through my camouflage that I'm not actually this seasoned manager, well, that's when you have to stop and say, every seasoned manager at some point was new. And they had to grow and learn into the type of manager that they are at that, at any given point down the line. And so this is on you to realize you have the power within you to be the type of manager you want to be, but you have to actually be able to see that type of manager. So it's almost like the chameleon being able to see their environment to say, okay, I'm on a green tree now, I'm going to change into being green. It's the same way with using our imagination to be able to see that perfect manager and to say, okay, I'm going to act like that. And now sometimes where we can get stumped and we're like, well, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what the perfect manager in this field would look like. Well, we can actually tap into either looking at some of your favorite literary heroes or people, or some of your favorite movie heroes or people. I've definitely used that, where I have captured the spirit or the energy of a character I really love and associate with, and bring that into that experience to say, I'd love to bring a little bit of that Pollyanna optimism and truth into the situation. So every time I get a little scared to act in a specific way, I'm going to think about that character and try to elevate and have the courage that character showed. And I know that character might not be real, but you can still utilize those amazing characteristics and learn from them and then utilize them. So that's just a little technique there for anybody who's moving into something new, to utilize your imagination to get past that lack of training, to get past that gap between, but I never actually was told how to do this, and now you're just doing it. But I really do think here, Capricorn, that there's this quality of just step into this energy and own it. So yes, you may not want to do your taxes because you're afraid that you're going to owe a bunch of money, and you're not that knowledgeable of the financial realm to be able to do anything. And so this might be the place where you sit there and you say, I'm going to do my own research, and then I'm going to actually admit and say, what, I think it might be time for us to seek out a CPA or seek out some tax help, third-party tax help, because I really do feel that we've kind of gone outside of my scope of knowledge. And to own that. And as soon as you act in accordance with your fear and you own that and you express that, that's when things fall into line. That's when that block dissolves. That's when you're sniffing at others like, oh, okay, well, great. I'm glad you're on top of it. And you're right. I really do think we should, have our taxes checked out. In fact, maybe we should have them look back at last year's taxes and see if we did them wrong. That's where what we've built up inside of ourselves is this big thing. When we stop procrastinating and we just move forward on it, that's when we alleviate and we free ourselves from carrying that heavy burden of fear and anxiety. And that's actually at the root of anxiety. So, act as if. And if you need help from your imagination or from a fictional TV, movie, or literary character, go ahead and do that. You can ask yourself, let's say you just love the Marvel character of Spider-Man, and you love how Spider-Man handles himself in situations. Well, then this is that time to ask yourself, well, what would Spider-Man do? And then act as if. It can be that simple, Capricorn. It really can be. All right, now we're going to step into contemplation. Contemplation is the final principle in the Triad of Engagement, because it allows us to take responsibility for the consequences of our actions through reflection. So we get a chance to stop, take a look, and say, okay, I took action. Well, I was curious about something, I took action, and then what happened? And then this is where we get to integrate lessons. This is where we get to learn through direct hands-on experience with our external environment, through engaging our unique self with our external environment. Now, contemplation can be a little hard for some people, and actually I think for all of us at some point, because it does involve being honest and stepping into that place of responsibility for what happens What are the consequences from our actions? And then going back and starting the process again of being curious, like, okay, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted. So now how am I going to alter my actions a little bit more? Or to say, wow, that worked out really amazingly. What did I learn about myself? And how can I continue to grow that part of myself? And that's the beauty of contemplation. It connects the dots. We get a chance to continue to self-educate. All right, so 2 cards came out for you, Capricorn. We have Get Grounded, and it says empaths, highly sensitives, and connect with nature. And then we have Unbound, and it says releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. There's really a theme here, Capricorn, of releasing, of freeing yourself from some type of energy that is really keeping you kind of stuck. That's keeping you in a place of anxiety, keeping you in a place of, I think, fear. And that's why you're procrastinating on taking action towards something or taking action towards recognition of some part of yourself that needs to be brought, that awareness needs to be brought to this month. And then with this Get Grounded, there's this element of freeing yourself from that anxiety, freeing yourself from some fear tied to some aspect of self, and realizing that at the same time too, you also really need to get grounded. You need to stop kind of acting like the silly, kid or almost like the adolescent teenager dancing around a topic. It's time for you to step up into that higher version of yourself. And that may sound a little harsh, but I think Capricorn, you can handle it because you really do come into that father archetype. You're also a cardinal earth sign. You are meant to be the builders. You are meant to be the leaders in being able to utilize your surroundings, your material surroundings, to meet your goals. You are one of those signs, and actually so is Cancer. You are signs that really have this unique ability to set your eyes on a prize, on a goal, so to speak, and be able to meet it. And so there is this element of freeing yourself right now from what is holding you back emotionally from stepping up into your power, from getting back to that kind of a little bit more serious part of yourself, Capricorn, and get away from these little, I do feel kind of more immature outbursts or immature forms of communication, and come back to a place of empowered communication, stepping up into a place of empowerment in whatever area you need to take action in, and act as if, because in reality, the more you act as if, the more it actually is. And that's what's going to bring you, by the end of the month, back to this place of feeling confident, taking you away from anxiety, because you've swallowed the frog, so to speak. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever been or read any type of these kind of, self-help books and how to prioritize and, kind of structure your day in the work world. But one of the concepts I read about years ago was swallow the frog. And it really speaks to looking at all the tasks you have for the day and what is that one task that you don't want to do. That kind of like swallowing the frog, right? It sounds gross. You're like, I don't want to do that. And so what can happen is that we end up doing all these other random little things that try to distract us from the fact that we know we need to swallow this frog. And basically the whole concept is to put that, whatever feels like swallowing the frog to you, you put that at the top and you prioritize that and you get it out of the way. And that way it clears your energy so that you can then just do all the other random tasks to the best of your ability without having this constant continual stress, this anxiety in the background of like, I have to swallow this frog. I have to swallow. And so you're like typing an email and you're like, but I know I have to swallow this frog. And so you end up doing everything else throughout your day with this something hanging over you. It feels like you have a monkey on your back. When in reality, if you would have just got that first phone call out of the way, or that sending that email to your boss saying, I'd like to set up a meeting to discuss that raise I was supposed to get, and you just send it in the morning, and then you can go on and dedicate yourself to the rest of your tasks. That's really the energy that I'm feeling for you guys here, and that's what's going to help you get grounded, what's going to help free you from this anxiety and from this fear you're carrying around something specifically that's blocking you from just being at your best, which is being able to meet your goals and come across maturely and really be and step into that kind of, patriarchal archetype, which is that leadership type energy. All right, Capricorn, I hope this has been an illuminating reading. I know sometimes I feel like these readings can come across as like tough love, but we all need to hear this from time to time. And I know I've had to have similar moments in my life, and actually just even recently for myself, having to go through something similar of, okay, it's time to face this aspect of self or face this topic. And it just happens to be that month for you. And what's lovely is that if you do, it's going to help clear that energy. It's going to help you feel like the weight has been lifted. And I really do feel like whatever you're facing, whether it's something as big and large as facing the fact that you need to realize and admit to yourself that you have an issue around a addiction, or some behavioral pattern that you need to change, that's a really big deal, or whether it's as small as just being afraid to complete your taxes because you're afraid you're going to owe a little bit more money than you anticipated, that there's this quality of, whether large or small, by the end of the month, the freedom you'll feel from facing this fully head on in a mature fashion. And from that perspective of knowing that once you do, it's going to unlock some aspect of yourself that's been stopping you from really, I think, achieving some type of goal or success in your life at the moment, that it's gonna end on a beautiful note. So big or small, it's time to swallow that frog, Capricorn. All right, so if you'd like to book a personal tarot reading or a one-on-one spiritual coaching session, the link to my website is in the description box below. If you'd like to turn a one-on-one coaching session into a live tarot reading, absolutely, I can do that. Just type that into the notes. And I hope you get a chance to check out your spiritual connection and love connection readings as well for this month, as they're kind of meant to be taken as a holistic look at yourself in helping you really, again, step into that place and purpose and feeling of emotional fulfillment. All right, Capricorns, have a wonderfully illuminated rest of your day, and I look forward to the rest of your readings for August.